Thanks a lot. Yeah, I also had the 20th reunion of my high school rock band last night in New York, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be so tired today. But everyone I've talked to here is like, I was up till 3 last night. Like, what are you worried about? I was only up till 12. So I'm glad I'm in good company there. So that's good. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the history of Etsy and a little bit about our evolution as a mission-driven company. All the images you see are people from Etsy, from vendors on the site, or the products they're selling. So this is our apartment in Fort Greene, our old apartment in Fort Greene. This is where Etsy was hatched. It was 2004, and this guy, Rob Kalin, who was my roommate at the time, was making these handmade wooden computers. And he was wondering what to do with them. And he said, you know, I'm going to sell these online. And he went and looked at eBay, and he saw that, like, eBay is great if you're selling a bunch of CDs or something that you don't want anymore. But if you actually really care about the things that's being sold, it's very impersonal. And he and actually these two guys, those two guys on the right in the center there, they were all at NYU together. And there's actually a funny story about Rob, very typical of Rob's, just the way he operates. Our landlord lived right across the street from us, from that building there. And one day, because Rob was making handmade wooden computers, he didn't have any money to pay his rent. And he went down to the landlord's office and to tell him, basically, I can't pay rent right now. And he saw a proposal for a website on our landlord's desk. And it was exactly twice the amount of money that he owed in rent. And he said, I'll make your website for half that amount. And Rob went out and got an HTML book that day. And that was actually the first website that he made. And it was for a restaurant in Manhattan called Acme. I think it's still there. And he wanted to have animated flames on the website. So this is like the height of technology in 2004. Like, let's have animated flames. He posted a message on the NYU bulletin board, and those two engineers responded, yeah, we can animate flames. And that's how the founding team of Etsy was born. And actually, so to go back to the wooden computers, those three guys made the restaurant website. The second website they made was for a professor's wife, and it was called Get Crafty. And when Rob saw that there's all these people out there making things right now, it kind of was like, aha, I'm not just going to make a website for my computers, I'm going to make a website for everybody else. So in June of 2005, this version of Etsy launched. That's the first version 1.0, the beta version, I guess. Those are the original engineers there. I soon joined as the marketing person, which was also pretty ridiculous because I knew nothing about marketing. I was in a band before Etsy. That was my job, and Rob was like, come do this website with me. And I was like, all right, I guess so. So the funny thing was the more I learned about marketing, the more I realized that it was like I didn't like marketing, actually. And so this is, I think, kind of the beginning of already Etsy's journey as an unusual company. So there was no business plan for Etsy. It was just Rob had an idea. He built the site. I was just telling Jonathan about our first investment was cash out of a back of a restaurateur's Cadillac. And we would put it in the bank in denominations so the IRS wouldn't notice. So I have to say it's all on the level now, but at the time it was a little suspect. So anyways, so Etsy launched in June of 2005, and here's where we are today. So there's over 35 million members of Etsy, 1 million small businesses, over 200 countries with transactions in them, and 60 million people coming to the site every month. So to give you a look at what that actually means in terms of gross merchandise sales, our first year I think we sold around $200,000 of stuff. Last year we sold almost 900 million, and this year will be around 1.4 billion. So that's really exciting. Well, thanks. That's not what we make, by the way. I think that's really important to remember. This is actually, the economic activity of all the small businesses on Etsy. So that's 1 million small businesses, 92% of which are run by women. And that's actually like real impact in the world. So that's really exciting for us. And that's actually what kind of got us thinking. So, when we started out, we were always, we wanted to do business in a certain way that was ethical. It never occurred to us because we didn't know anything about business. So we just did it in the way that felt natural and right. The more we learned about business, the more we realized that it can be pretty brutal. But the nice thing about being, having your own company is you just decide how you want to run the business. And, when the company was 5 people, 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, you could just say, oh, that doesn't feel very Etsy to me, and everyone would know what you mean. But when you start to be 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, 500 people, you don't even know all the people in the office when you go in there. So they may be coming from Google or Facebook or wherever, and American Express, whatever it may be. They've done business a certain way, and you can't just say, that doesn't seem very Etsy to me. So, as the company started to grow, we started kind of changing the way that we were thinking about it. When we started out, it was just your place to buy and sell all things handmade. It was very simple. But as we started to have real economic impact in people's lives, we started thinking about the company differently. And it wasn't just about handmade things, it was about these people. And in 2011, we hosted our first conference. Judy was there. I saw her somewhere. Anyways, this was, we'd long been asked to have an Etsy conference for people, for the members just to come and meet. And when we finally decided to have one, we had one that was really much more focused on economics than anything else. And it was the first time that we, it was the first time that we actually kind of stopped thinking about Etsy just as this marketplace and really about a platform for independent creative businesses and about trying to build a more connected, just, and equitable economy through all of these small businesses. So this is how we talked about Hello Etsy. And it was also around this time that we decided we really needed to formalize the mission, vision, and values of the company. We'd had different ones. I remember at one point the website had 5 different mission statements on it. They all were like roughly the same idea, but we were a little all over the place with these things. So we came up with this, reimagine commerce in ways that build a more fulfilling and lasting world. And that's Etsy's mission now. And so it's kind of our mission and our vision. So reimagine commerce, that's really what we do. And to me, reimagining commerce is about empowering a very large number of very small things rather than a small number of very large things. And it's about, bringing more meaning to the marketplace. It's about building connections and community. It's about, having a business that's also reimagining how you need to do business. So it's, creating a lot more value in the world than you actually take from the world, right? Of that $1.4 billion or whatever it is, we take 3.5%. So 96.5% of that goes back to all these small businesses. And we can build a profitable business, have 500 employees on that slim of a margin. So I feel like there's a lot of ways that we reimagine commerce. The vision is this lasting and fulfilling world. And I chose those words really, really carefully. Lasting, I feel like, from an ecological point of view, what are we going to have to do to still be around? And what's interesting is that when I read Small is Beautiful, I saw, that was a really important book for me, actually, because, it was written in, 69 through 72, something like that. But I was reading it, and I was like, this is Etsy. Like, this is what they're talking about. It's all these human-scaled economies, and we can do this. Continued with books like Deep Economy by Bill McKibben, and that was also a real eye-opener because, what we're trying to do is actually build communities and connect people around the world. And I really believe that, if we're going to be a lasting world, we need to build community more than anything else. And fulfilling is also a word that I chose carefully. And a lot of people ask us, well, how many people make a living on Etsy? And it's like I always want to reduce things into just economic terms. But I like to think about, well, how many people are actually making a life on Etsy? You know, meaning they may not have it be their full-time job, but it allows them to spend more time with their kids or do something that they love and not always be in some soul-crushing office. So, thanks. So that's really the world that we're trying to build, and we do believe that business can do that, right? All of these small businesses, all of you all, can do business in a way that build a lasting and fulfilling world. You all know about B Labs and B Corp. I don't need to talk about that too much, but we were really excited to become a B Corp in 2012. That was one of the first things that we did after kind of rewriting our mission. And I'm also happy to say we got a score of 80.2. So I don't know. I know a lot of you all are B Corps. Like, we barely passed. And actually, this year we're now at 105. So in 1 year, we've done a lot to really improve. But it was great for us to actually see, you know, where we were doing poorly and where we needed to improve. So that happened. A quick bit of history. So I ran marketing at Etsy for the first 5 years. Then I went and lived in Berlin for 2.5 years and started up our international operations. Rob left the company in 2011, and our CTO, Chad, became the CEO. He asked me to take over marketing again. Again, I don't like marketing, but I did it anyways. And I moved back to New York and started running the marketing team and quickly split that up. Because our marketing was never really traditional marketing. It was really just more about building community. And I was talking with a woman just a second ago at lunch who was telling me about the Etsy teams that she's on. So we've got groups of teams all around the world, groups of Etsy sellers who create teams offline too. We split up the marketing team into basically everything that I didn't like over here, and then everything that I cared about is like, I'll do that as my job. And so everything that I cared about is now called values and impact. And so we're a small team at Etsy with this as a mission. So our team mission, minimize the harm, maximize the benefit Etsy has on people on the planet. And the way that we do that is to give the people the means and the desire to make mission and vision value line decisions. So the two key words here are means and desire. And by people, I really mean Etsy employees initially. And I want to focus on the desire part, because this was kind of the big light bulb moment that I had this year. You know, when the team started, we were just like hit the ground running, and we were cranking out like, you know, we studied the carbon footprint of the Etsy marketplace and realized, you know, that like what the carbon footprint is of every bracelet, these kinds of things. And I was like, we have all of this awesome data now. And I went to the search team, and I was like, guys, you can filter search results by carbon footprint now, and you can do like all of these things. They're like, yeah, but I've got all these other priorities and all of this stuff. And I was like, why is everyone not as excited about this as I am? And I realized that I was spending too much time offering the means to people and not enough time inspiring desire in people. You know, you can have all that data, but the people have to want to do something with it to actually make it work. So now I'd say about 80% of what we do is desire and 20% is means. And we do that to also try to not silo the work that we do. I think this happens in a lot of companies. The more I learned about kind of traditional CSR and everything, it's great. You guys probably invented it all. But I felt like there's a lot of organizations that was like, well, here's our business, and then here's all the hippie shit that we do over here, and this is great, you know. But, you know, I really want our business itself to be, you know, the impact driver. So, you know, what I felt like I needed to do was actually, you know, give everyone in the organization the tools to make these decisions themselves. Because that's really what it's all about, choices. And, you know, the whole kind of mission, vision, values of the company, the culture of the company, none of that stuff can be forced. It's just the, you know, aggregate of all of the decisions that everybody makes every day. So if people choose to do things a certain way, like the company will be that way. So that's really where I focus now. And that's also a really hard thing when that's your job. It's like, well, my job is about inspiring people to care about stuff. You know, like how do you measure whether you're successful or not? But you keep at it anyways. So briefly, I want to talk about one step what we're doing next. So when I started this team, I really obviously had no idea what I was doing. I'd never done values and impact before. I made up the name too. It wasn't, it wasn't like there was a handbook for it. And I kept thinking, I wish there was just a website that would just tell me how to do all of these things. And so I've been doing this for, about a year now. And I decided that I'm going to build that website. So what we're doing, and I'm hoping once it launches that all of you guys will be a part of this. What we're trying to do is build a platform that's kind of like for open source software, but for values-led business. So, if you guys do something that worked really well with your company, well, you should share it with other companies so they can do it too, and download it and iterate upon it. So really in that spirit. So it's not yet launched, but this is a platform that is for businesses by businesses. And I think about it actually as a really perfect complement to SVN, because SVN is kind of the who, and I feel like B Labs is kind of like the what you're measuring. Well, this is really the how. This is supposed to be a place where you can go and just learn how to do things. So I'll give you another example. Actually, the study we did on the carbon footprint of the Etsy marketplace, well, it cost a lot of money. We had to use consultants. It was really complicated. Understanding how the postal service works, looking at millions of pieces of data from shipping labels to get average weights of things. Well, you should be able to do that too if you have a marketplace. So we'll put that up there. Then you can download it and change it around, put your iteration of it up on the same platform. So we're expecting this to launch sometime in 2014. I've created a little landing page. I'll give you the URL in a second. If you want to learn more about this or get involved, the idea is actually to have it be independent from Etsy, a not-for-profit entity that's created by a bunch of businesses, really just with the sole purpose of maximizing the impact that we can have in the world. So with that, thank you. And I guess we've got some time for questions now. For all the husbands who are widowed by Etsy. Oh, there's back on now. Any other questions? It's funny. I've never not been asked that question. And I always give, well, actually, for a while, we would lie about it a lot. Like, we would come up with these really elaborate stories, or we'd say things that were just like, oh, it's French for the word checkmate. But, like, it's not at all. It was Rob's grandmother. It was like really, it was the last 4-letter domain left on the internet. But the real answer is actually really kind of unsatisfying. Rob swears it was from a scene in Fellini's 8½. I also think that's a lie. But I think the idea was, and I remember actually when Rob was coming up with the site, I was suggesting all sorts of really awful names for the website. The worst one, as a joke, but was handjob.com. Sorry. Was that I'm a little underslept, sorry. Anyways, I think the idea is that we wanted a name that didn't come preloaded with a lot of baggage with it. So if we'd just been, like handmade.com or something like that, well, our view of handmade is actually probably very different from most people. We feel that computer code can be handmade. We feel music is handmade. We think film can be handmade. What's really important is actually, the human behind these things, not necessarily just the means of production. So Etsy means just what it is, and this is what I love about it, is we don't make Etsy, right? All of the sellers make Etsy. They decide what's sold on Etsy. And so, yeah, that's my deeply unsatisfying answer is no answer. It just means what it is. There's no great story behind it.
Question over here. Question Hi, my name is Allison Raponi, founder and CEO of Nearby Registry. I'll be straight with you. We're recreating a lot of things that Etsy already does really well, and we don't want to recreate it. But you can't take us seriously yet because we haven't proven anything. So I'm asking not just on my behalf, and hopefully I could get a conversation with you at some time, but on behalf of all the other entrepreneurs who don't want to recreate, but we don't have the clout yet to come and see people like you or other industries to say, hey, let's partner, or what do you think of this model? What's wrong with it? What's right with it? How do we get in front of people like you so we aren't recreating things that don't need to be recreated?
Well, I mean, you can certainly start by emailing me, matt@etsy.com. That's it's an easy email to remember. It's a bigger question. The funny thing is you'll find as your business gets bigger and bigger, well, now there's a whole business development team who does these partnerships and these kinds of things. And, it becomes harder and harder in a way the bigger you get to, and the number of requests grow and grow and grow. So I can't ever say like, well, 100% we can partner with every single person who wants to partner with us. One, because it's not really my decision anymore. But the one thing that we can definitely do is talk, and we actually are all really try to be very generous with our time, make sure that we're there to answer questions, to help people avoid pitfalls. I mean, we did a lot of things wrong. We still do a lot of things wrong, but that's actually, also part of what Open Impact is about. It's about companies sharing these best practices so other companies can avoid these mistakes. But we also have an API which allows developers to actually build things on top of Etsy. So that's another way to actually work with us. But I'm open to hear whatever, and if I'm not the right person to answer the question, I can at least get it to the person who is.
Hi, over here, Matt. Right here.
Okay, hi.
Hi, I'm Judith Katz with the Khalil Jamison Consulting Group. And first, I just want to appreciate your being here, particularly with the newborn, and your time and your generosity, your spirit, and all of that. So thank you for being a part of this community today. The one thing I'm really impressed with your model, I love Etsy for many, many reasons, and particularly when you talked about the number of entrepreneurs who are women. And so how are you doing with that internally? How is your senior management team? How have you tried to model who's involved with Etsy as well as who's inside your company?
Yep. I'm glad you asked that, actually. It was funny. I used to travel around the country a lot, meeting with Etsy sellers in every city, and they're always shocked that I was a man, and I was always the only man in the room. Which is funny. I've got tons of pictures I would email to my wife from wherever I was, and it would be me and like 80 women. I remember one time I went to Australia, and we threw an Etsy party, and I was the only guy in there. And so there's a picture of me like dancing with like 75 women at once. It's really funny. But I'm not making light of the matter, but we did realize that that balance wasn't as evenly represented in the office. So it's actually been a big focus for us, especially around engineering, because engineers are the largest team at Etsy. And so actually we've devoted a lot of time and money to trying to switch the gender balance there. We created something called Hacker School grants. So we gave grants to women engineer candidates to come and live in New York and learn engineering and coding. And we actually increased the number of female applicants to Hacker School by 700% when we started the grants. And actually we've changed the, I'm going to get the number wrong because I'm not an engineer, but I think we've increased the number of women engineers at Etsy by something like 500% in the last couple of years. So it's a big push for us. We just hired our first CFO too, a woman named Christina Salen. So I guess our second top executive after Chad is a woman too. So it's something that we're trying to work on. Should I just call on people, or is whoever has the mic?
Okay.
Okay. Hi.
Hey, Matt. So this sort of piggybacks on what Judith was asking. And when you were speaking today, you sort of hit on a few things. I'm loud to start with, so giving me a microphone is a bad idea, just so you know. Can you talk a little bit about local economic impact that Etsy has had on having people have the ability to have a business without their own business plan, without their own investors? There also is a whisper of fair trade around this, and I'd like to hear your take on that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that, just in and of itself, the numbers speak a lot to the economic impact that we're having, right? So it's, I don't know where we'll end up this year, but well over $1 billion. And that's, generated by all of these small businesses. Now, some people on Etsy are very, very successful. Some people not so successful. And some people really see it as, this is about making money, this is about doing that. Some people just want to share the things that they make. So it really runs the gamut. Interestingly enough, we did a big census of Etsy last year. And I think, I'm going to get the number wrong, but I think between 60 and 75%, I can't remember the exact number, of the businesses on Etsy see themselves, would like it to be their job. And so, it's clearly something that people are thinking about as, an economic tool, not just a community of makers or something like that. What was the second part of your question?
There's a piece of it all that feels like fair trade to me.
Right.
Even though you're somewhat of a middleman.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, right now, about 30% of our business comes from outside of the United States. So that's either a buyer or a seller who's not in the United States. It's the biggest focus right now of the company is actually international expansion. We haven't done like a really formal push into, okay, we're going to get into the developing world and make this a focus of the company. I think that's a really logical place to go with it because I think the opportunity is huge, right? There's of course a whole lot of infrastructure challenges in a lot of places, right? There's not a reliable postal service. There's not necessarily web connections, these kinds of things. But for almost zero marginal cost, people can get direct access to markets, all around the world. And so I think the potential for impact is great. But it's not something that we have done a little pilot experiment. We have traveled to places like Mexico and Haiti and tried to figure out like what would it take. Because what we don't want to do is just, create, like what we want to do is get people direct access to things themselves, empower individual people. So we'll see what happens there.
Hi, my name's Heather, and I'd like to ask if you could elaborate a little bit about Rob's exit from the company in 2011. It was reported in the mainstream media, and Etsy's such a great example of a new economy success story. I first heard about it from my children, and it really just seems like one of the warmest and fuzziest places you can imagine in business, and I think that's one of the reasons why it appeals to so many people, and it's been very successful. But we don't know very much about the board, but from the reports about Rob's exit in 2011, it led a lot of us to believe that the board actually represents a more mainstream composition of old economy business leaders. And if you could comment on that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first, the board is actually a pretty fantastic board. It's Katerina Fake, who started Flickr. It's Fred Wilson, who runs Union Square Ventures, if you know him. He's definitely not old economy. It's Chad and Jonathan Klein, who runs Getty Images. And then another guy from Index Ventures, Danny Reimer. Yeah, I mean, I don't know all of the exact details around Rob's departure. I think the short version of the story, it's not that uncommon for tech companies with a kind of visionary founder. Once they reach size, the skills that you need to actually create something and really try to do something special are often different from managing 500 people. And I think that it's actually, this was the second time Rob left, actually. Rob left in 2009, came back again in 2010, and then left in 2012. So, I can't really comment on like exactly what the conversations were with Rob and the board because I wasn't there. But it was a tumultuous time at Etsy in some ways. I think growing up, like becoming a big company is challenging, and especially when you're trying to do it in a way that's, what do I say, like keeping it real, growing big but staying small, and how you think about it. So I can't really comment beyond that on what those conversations were about, but they were between him and the board.
Hi, it's very impressive to see the kind of touch and feel of the mission, and I was wondering how that translated into ownership. And my name is Jonathan Rosenthal, Co-op Coffees, and I'm addicted to democratizing ownership.
Well, so this is going to, this will be an interesting future for Etsy. Right now, every employee is an owner in Etsy. They have stock or stock options when they start. Of course, the majority shareholders are the investors, the board. We took a lot of money from venture capitalists. And I'm assuming they're going to want it back at some point. So this is something we think about a lot. Like, what does that look like, and how do we do that in a way that's true to our mission and vision? And in a perfect world, I would love to see all of the sellers of Etsy own Etsy. I think I'm certainly no expert on finance law, quite the contrary. But that would be the ideal situation for me. And maybe that means being public one day. Maybe there's a way to do it differently. I don't really know. It's not something that we're actively trying to decide on right now, but certainly something we're thinking about.
Hi, my name's Lori Emmerich with Building for Progress. I come from a background working in the Global South. I've done some work in Haiti and public health. And well, first off, I want to thank you for all your efforts in terms of bringing up the women's participation as sellers and also as staff and engineers, et cetera. So thank you. My question is, are some of the producers, are they all individuals, or are some of them co-ops of women or people that are producing? And I also would like your reflection sort of based, again, thinking of the Global South, of the difference between, making a difference in one person's life and maybe 5 employees that they have versus sort of a more community economic development impact you might have.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you asked that, actually, because this is, if you are at all involved with Etsy, you may have heard about policy changes that we had actually about a week ago. And this is a very hotly contested topic on Etsy. What is handmade? Is it handmade if multiple people are making something? These kinds of things. Etsy definitely kind of started out with the the designer, the maker, the shipper, the customer support person. It was all one person working out of their bedroom or whatever it may be. But as businesses started to grow on Etsy, we realized actually that, one, we were kicking our best sellers off, our most successful members, because we had policies in place that wouldn't allow them to be getting outside help and these kinds of things. And two, we started thinking, well, isn't this exactly what we want? Like, don't we want to create economic opportunity for more people, for that small sewing co-op, whatever it may be? So just 2 weeks ago, we changed our policies on Etsy to allow for manufacturing assistance, as long as it's completely transparent, meaning you say who they are. You have to apply if you want outside help. But what we're seeing is that these co-ops and these kinds of things are forming naturally. Etsy sellers have already kind of formed together to help. Not everyone's going to be really successful on Etsy, but that doesn't mean if your own product isn't a hit that you don't have skills that are useful for other Etsy sellers. So we see people banding together to buy materials to help one member produce more things, and this to me is the really exciting potential for Etsy. So, you know, manufacturing is something we're very interested in, and, you know, figuring out a way to manufacture that's values aligned. And I think cooperative production is probably one of the best ways to do that.
My name is Joe James. I'm a green tech entrepreneur, but through my nonprofit, I volunteer. And there's a wonderful group of women in Liberia who make these gorgeous hand-stitched quilts. And, you know, in a country where the unemployment rate is, I don't know, 50, 60, 70%, they can never get pricing that compares to the quality of what they make. Do you think that we could work with you possibly to help introduce those quilts into a broader market?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I think that these new policies I was just talking about allow for those kinds of things, because before we really didn't allow for that. I think, you know, there's some interesting stuff that goes on Etsy where everyone just assumes, like, you know, if something's made in China, then it's made in a sweatshop, or, you know, there's not a lot of transparency into how things are made. And so I think that, you know, if you can tell that story of this women co-op there and, you know, get them onto Etsy, then that's going to help them even charge a higher price, I believe, because I think people are going to want that meaning and that story that comes with the product. So I think Etsy would be perfect for that.
Hi, over here, Matthew Colbert. Was curious whether, as head of values and impact and one of the B Corp's great success stories, whether based on all these different issues, whether you're able to find ways to kind of leverage your buying power to reflect back to your values and thus allow more kind of even bigger companies to see that these values are important to you, and thus how you decide whether you're going to do business with them or not.
Yep. So we have a pretty comprehensive vendor survey that you know, we use to audit and to evaluate potential vendors. You know, I think with some vendors, we're a big enough customer that we can, if they have practices that are questionable, we can either decide not to work with them, or, hey, let us help you do this differently. You know, and then there's other vendors where we're, you know, pretty small fish still. In particular, our data center, I've been trying to get them to change their practices, and only realize they're like, well, our other clients are the U.S. government, J.P. Morgan, you know, whatever. And I was like, oh, right. So, you know, it's something that we definitely think about. You know, I think the real potential is the platform, right? Because you've got 1 million businesses purchasing things. And so if we can leverage the platform, you know, I imagine that we could help not only reduce costs for the businesses on Etsy, but also, you know, purchase with our values and help them do the same.
This is the last question.
Cool. Hi, Matt. William Shetkin, president of Presidio Graduate School. As a once and future musician, I'm interested in what music you played, instrument, and do you still play?
Yeah, I played last night.
Cool.
I heard there's an awesome band. No. I had my high school band reunion last night. But I hear there's an awesome band at this conference. So, yeah. Unfortunately, I have to go. Well, I have to go back to my children after this. But next conference, I want to sit in for sure. I play the guitar.
What kind of music?
My band in high school was a soul band. We were mostly popular at proms. My real band was a band called the French Kicks. It was an independent rock band. And you know the French Kicks? Ah! We were pretty big. And I left that band in 2005 to go to Etsy, and the band continued for another 5 years after I was gone. And now mostly I play the ukulele for my children, but that's about all I have time to do. But yeah, I'm a guitar player and a singer. All right, well, thank you very much.